my house plant is not reproducing. It looks perfectly healthy. It's growing. It's grown since I put it in this room. But it's not able to reproduce. So outside that green zone where you're growing, you're reproducing, you're really thriving, we'll call it the yellow zone. And in this yellow zone, life is good. It's okay. You can grow. Whoops. But you probably can't reproduce. And that's where we keep a lot of our house plants. You know, in the wild, this plant would have more root space. It would have the exact moisture it needs. It would be doing much better. It would probably be thriving enough to reproduce. I'm keeping it healthy. I'm doing the best I can in an interior house setting, but it's not in the perfect zone. So it's okay. It's growing, not reproducing. So this idea of not reproducing, no reproduce, sorry. I'll just tell you what that says. No reproduce. No reproduce. If an organism, be it a houseplant or a mouse or a blue whale or a daffodil or a tree or a human, is not getting everything it needs in the optimal amounts, and there's some give and take on this. One of the first things that gets shut down is reproduction. So that's one of the first things that the body shuts down is reproduction. How many of you have seen footage of people who came out of the concentration camps in Europe after World War II? Okay, those walking, emaciated skeletons. Now, those people were even, they were below the yellow zone. But before they got to that condition, they were already at a point where their body would have shut down reproduction. In men, this means they no longer produce sperm. Their testes cease functioning. In women, it means that they stop menstruating. They stop having a menstrual cycle. Their body stops ovulation. This is something that you very often, they used to talk about it a lot with gymnasts. With women who are like super athletes, if they are training so hard and not getting so many calories, very often menstruation will cease because their body is saying, hey, you don't have the reserves here, sister. You don't have the energy to do this. You're hanging on. You're fine. You do not have the energy to put into creating another being. Well, it's reversible. I mean, once conditions improve, typically fertility returns. But same thing with plants. This plant is not in the perfect place. It's not getting everything it needs in the amounts where it'll flower. When you have a house plant that flowers, that means that it's really doing well. That's a step above just surviving and growing. Now, let's talk about what happens when we drop even below that level. So here, in this orange, this is the survival range. Okay, so that orange, this is survival. At this point, the organism is not going to grow. An organism that's making it under those conditions is probably not growing. So if we take a human, for instance, we can look at like calorie intake in humans. And I said, if your calorie intake and energy output drops below a certain point, you get real skinny, but at a certain point, you also shut off reproductive functions. But if you're still in the part of your life where you are growing, you probably still grow. But if you drop below a certain threshold, your body stops growing. Hey, you got enough cells to feed here. We can't afford any more cells. We're going to keep alive the cells we have. So children who survived the concentration camps, for many of them, they will be shorter as adults than full-blooded siblings who were born 5 years later. Because having that kind of impact on your growth at a developmental point in life can impact you for life. We talked about... Okay, so outside of that, once we get below that orange zone, what do we have here? Death. Yes. That's death. think it said the swim team bus is leaving at 3. Does that make sense? Okay, so here's the way we sum that up. Hey, looky there. This is a tolerance curve. This is a tolerance curve. So we look at any organism and any abiotic factor, whether it's the amount of sunlight or oxygen or temperature or calories, and we can graph how well that organism is going to do under those conditions. And this is, again, this is our red zone out here on the edge. And we've got our little orange zone and our little yellow zone. Go away.
Did you hear
Nope. I have... That's what we thought it was. Okay. I'll have to go apologize to her for that. I love Mrs. Motry. That's why I can do that. What I like about the way this one shows it, so that middle is obviously the green. They're saying, well, this is the reproductive zone. But in that range of conditions, organisms can grow and reproduce. They can thrive. Well, that's also the zone where the population can grow. Okay, hold on.